While George Lucas remains a polarizing figure in the Star Wars community due to his constant tinkering with the original films, several changes he's made over the years make total sense. As technology has evolved and Lucas has had the opportunity to revisit his creative choices, he's made several adjustments to the franchise. Some of these changes, admittedly, were met with intense backlash from fans. However, it's important to remember that not all Lucas's alterations were bad. In fact, some of them are genuinely justified and add value to the Star Wars universe. Welcome to Star Wars Deconstructed, students of the Force and acolytes of the galaxy. Whether you're a Jedi, Sith, or somewhere in between, join us today as we explore some of these changes. Yoda's CGI in The Phantom Menace. George Lucas didn't limit his penchant for changes to the original trilogy. He also ventured into tweaking the prequels for the recent home video releases. Case in point, The Phantom Menace's 2011 Blu-ray edition saw the classic puppet version of Yoda replaced by a digital double. It's understandable why some fans might initially raise an eyebrow at this change, especially given how Lucas made some arguably unnecessary changes in the original trilogy. However, the switch to CGI Yoda makes a lot of sense in this case. As charming as the Yoda puppet might be in the original trilogy, it stands out conspicuously amid the predominantly digital world of The Phantom Menace. Let's face it, it doesn't look great at all in that context. The digital replacement, however, is incredibly detailed and helps these scenes blend more seamlessly with the CGI Yoda used in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. So while it might still be a topic of debate among fans, this is one instance where Lucas made the right call by ditching the somewhat awkward-looking puppet. Anakin's removal of eyebrows in The Return of the Jedi. In the original version of this scene, Anakin sported some rather substantial eyebrows. However, considering we witnessed Anakin's horrific burning and transformation into Darth Vader in Revenge of the Sith, it just didn't make sense for him to still have eyebrows. So, Lucas employed some seamless CGI magic to remove those eyebrows, making Anakin's appearance more consistent with his fate in the prequels. While not exactly a must-have change, from a continuity perspective, it's entirely reasonable and about as unobtrusive as Lucas' digital alterations can get. CGI ropes around Han's feet in Return of the Jedi. In the original version of Return of the Jedi, Han Solo, portrayed by Harrison Ford, hangs over the Sarlacc pit from a skiff to rescue Lando Calrissian, played by Billy D. Williams, from the clutches of the creature. However, it's always been a bit puzzling how exactly Han manages to stay suspended in the air. In some shoots, it seems physically implausible for Chewbacca, portrayed by Peter Mayhew, to be holding onto Han's legs, and yet there he hangs. Enter the Special Edition, where Lucas introduced CGI ropes that are digitally tied around Han's ankles, finally providing a plausible explanation for how he can be suspended upside down at all times. Removing English text from the Death Star's tractor beam in A New Hope. Back when A New Hope was in production, George Lucas hadn't yet established a consistent in-universe written language for the Star Wars galaxy. So when Obi-Wan Kenobi, played by Alec Guinness, deactivated the tractor beam on the Death Star, the information gauge was clearly in English. However, as the Star Wars universe expanded, Lucas introduced a language similar to Aurebesh, which eventually evolved into a fully detailed writing system in later Star Wars media. Therefore, for A New Hope's 2004 DVD release, Lucas made the decision to replace the tractor beam's English text with Aurebesh. While this may not have been a change the fans were clamoring for, it did enhance the internal consistency of the Star Wars universe in a small but noticeable way. The Stormtrooper head bump sound effect in A New Hope. You're probably familiar with the scene where a hapless Stormtrooper accidentally bonks their head on a doorframe while entering the Death Star's control room. Believe it or not, this comical mishap was a genuine mistake that somehow made its way into the final film. But instead of erasing it, George Lucas decided to embrace the moment when the 2004 DVD release came around. In a rather humorous twist, Lucas added an audible bump sound effect when the Stormtrooper's helmet makes contact with the door. It takes this iconic scene from being a subtle Easter egg to an outright slapstick moment that everyone notices. But why not lean into the humor when you've got something this funny on your hands, right? Besides, that bump sound effect is just so satisfying every single time you hear it. The CGI ships taking off from Yavin 4 in A New Hope. Some of the best Star Wars changes are the ones that George Lucas simply couldn't achieve back in the day due to technical limitations, time constraints, or budget constraints. One such change that falls into this category is the addition of CGI shots depicting X-Wings and Y-Wings taking off from Yavin 4 and assembling in front of the Death Star during the climax of A New Hope. In the original version of the film, these ships were shown as tiny white blips in the distance. However, when the 1997 special edition rolled around, Lucas brought these scenes to life with beautifully realized up-close visual effects. These CGI shots were impressively detailed and managed to fit seamlessly into the overall aesthetic of the sequence, even though they were created decades after the original release. It's the kind of change that's so well executed that it makes you forget it wasn't there from the beginning, a testament to its quality. Ultimately, it's a change that enhances the viewing experience and adds to the richness of the Star Wars universe. The new Sandcrawler shot in A New Hope. In the original release of A New Hope, the shot of the Jawa Sandcrawler coming over the rise on Tatooine left much to be desired. It was a rather flat and uninspiring shot, lacking compelling composition. So when the 1997 special edition came along, Lucas made the decision to replace this lackluster shot with something much better. Instead of resorting to CGI to recreate the Sandcrawler, he enlisted the help of special effects artist Lauren Peterson, who had worked on the original film. Peterson used the original Sandcrawler prop to reshoot the scene, getting much closer to the Sandcrawler and allowing viewers to see its articulation in greater detail, all while framing the shot in a more visually appealing manner. All the fixed matte lines. When it comes to cosmetic changes that genuinely enhance Star Wars movies, George Lucas deserves praise for his efforts in addressing matte lines. Matte lines were a common sight throughout the original trilogy, black outlines of objects that had been composited into other shots, making it clear to eagle-eyed viewers that separate elements had been combined during post-production. Examples of this can be seen with the speeders during the Battle of Hoth in The Empire Strikes Back, and the Rancor and TIE Fighters in The Return of Jedi. However, for the 2004 DVD release, Lucas took the initiative to clean up these matte lines across the trilogy. He either removed them entirely or minimized them to the point where they were barely visible. While most fans might not have outright objected to the presence of matte lines, this adjustment preserves and future-proofs the films in a non-intrusive way. This becomes increasingly important, especially with higher resolution releases. It's a change that improves the overall viewing experience without detracting from the original essence of the films. Replacing Sebastian Shaw with Hayden Christensen, Return of the Jedi. The original final celebration scene of Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker, portrayed by Mark Hamill, sees the Force ghosts of Anakin Skywalker, Yoda, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. At that time, Anakin was played by Sebastian Shaw. However, since Hayden Christensen portrayed Anakin in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, George Lucas decided to replace Shaw's Force ghost with a new version of Anakin played by Christensen for the 2004 DVD release of Return of the Jedi. This change sparked intense controversy, with many fans opposing the idea of the prequels infiltrating the sacred original trilogy in such a direct way. Some also argued that it didn't make sense for Anakin's Force ghost to resemble his younger self. Yes, digitally superimposing Christensen's head onto Shaw's body may not look perfect, but it's easier to appreciate why Lucas made this choice. In the grand scheme of things, it's not as objectionable as some fans initially believed it to be. It's a change that adds a layer of emotional depth and continuity in the Star Wars saga, whether you love it or not. The blinking Dianoga, A New Hope. While George Lucas stirred some controversy with his decision to add CGI eyelids to the Ewoks in Return of the Jedi, which, let's be honest, left many fans scratching their heads, there's another change related to the eyes that actually makes complete sense. In the iconic trash compactor scene of A New Hope, we see Luke, Han, and Leia, played by Carrie Fisher, being observed and eventually attacked by a creature known as a Dianoga. This creature has a large, stalked eye that pops out of the water to watch the trio. However, for A New Hope's 2004 DVD release, Lucas made a subtle alteration by digitally adding a blink to the Dianoga. In the original version of the scene, it was painfully obvious that we were looking at a rather lackluster prop that didn't give the impression of being alive in any way. But the addition of something as simple as a blink immediately made the creature feel more tangible and present in the scene. Now it's a believable living entity rather than just a big eye on a stick. Given how minor this change is, it's hard to find fault with Lucas for making it, and it enhances the overall realism of the creature without altering the core of the scene. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel, and hey, watch the next one!